Welcome to Incredible Idaho. I'm Jack Hemingway, sitting in tonight as guest host for Wayne Walker. This winter of 96-97 is destined for the record books. There's been more snow this year in parts of Idaho than ever recorded since the government began keeping track over 30 years ago. Along with the avalanches, mudslides, and rampant flooding come reports of deer and elk on the brink of starvation. The truth is that the wildlife of our state is adapted to survive a Rocky Mountain winter and has endured the turbulent patterns of weather since the beginnings of time. The elk are the most visible. They stand starkly silhouetted against a snowy white hillside, motionless in the bitter cold. Naturally, our hearts are moved. We feel the cold and imagine ourselves in their place. But our bodies are not made to endure severe weather without protection. Our skin doesn't collect and contain heat like the thickened and insulated coats of deer and elk. Our feet aren't constructed with hooves, natural buffers against the ice. And our bodies don't use the energy in the same manner, deliberately slowing our metabolic rate to preserve it. But the feelings of compassion remain, and despite the fact that wildlife has survived winters without us for thousands of years, we feel compelled to help. Starvation is one of nature's laws, but a difficult one for man to accept. Our first instinct is to set up areas to feed the animals, and that is where we must proceed delicately and with the utmost caution. In our haste to help, we may do more damage than good. Artificially gathering large numbers of wild animals in an area can be an invitation for disease, and this is a concern for both the livestock industry and the Idaho Department of Fish and Game. In 1994, the Idaho legislature established 5-member citizens' committees in regions throughout the state to advise the Fish and Game on winter feeding issues and to establish the criteria that defines an emergency situation.
If we have such a severe winter that we would expect higher than usual mortality, then we should go ahead and feed and avoid some of that mortality. We'll never eliminate it all. And you expect mortality. That's one of the natural things that happens in a wild population, just like it happens in a human population, and we'll never eliminate it all. But in real severe critical circumstances, we can reduce some of that.
Another concern is that winter feeding results in animal populations staying artificially high, causing the wildlife to outgrow the winter habitat. This could happen near the small town of Stanley in the Sawtooth Mountains. Fish and Game biologists and the Citizens Advisory Committee estimate that the winter range in the Stanley Basin can support about 450 head of elk, but more than twice that number are trying to winter here.
We're at 1,000 elk right now, and we're trying to reduce that population through a combination of hunting and transplanting the animals out.
Although the sun is shining brightly, it's an icy cold morning in the Stanley Basin. By 9 o'clock, the temperature has climbed to a frigid 22 degrees below zero. The cold is biting, nipping at exposed flesh and attacking vulnerable fingers and toes. The early morning light casts long blue shadows across the snow as the trapping crew begins to work. Inside the enclosure is a lone elk, the first to be trapped in an operation that will eventually try and move nearly 100 animals to better winter range.
Come on back, Mark.
Eventually, everything is in place, and the gate swings open. The elk hesitates, and then sensing escape, trots through. It's instantly caught in the chute and immobilized so the scientists can mark it with ear tags.
That's good. Ear tags 390 and 391.
It's a female calf. The ear tags will identify her as an elk that was moved from the Stanley Basin if she's ever caught again or taken by a hunter. Then the gate is raised, and she instantly bolts for the shadowy security of the horse trailer.
Whoa. Close it. Okay, watch your fingers. Now we'll go down to the next trap, and we've got 3 elk there, and we'll try to get those out of the next trap. Put them in the same trailer.
It's just a short drive down the highway to the second trap site, a large corral set up adjacent to a hot spring. Elk are everywhere, feeding along the stream bed and loafing on the hillside above.
there's way too many elk here than what this little hot spring can support, which is kind of what causes the troubles out here. There's too many elk around for these little areas, and they just kind of hang out and wait till little shoots come up, little green shoots. And
The elk are being fed in this area to relieve the pressure and also to get them acclimated to the corral. The largest bundles of hay are placed inside the enclosure to entice the animals into the trap.
we've got 3 in there now, and a cow and a couple of calves. And, so we got to work these a little differently than we did the other one. Cow that's kind of caught like this, they can get pretty owly. So, you know, it's nothing for them to run around a few times and figure out there's no way out except through you. So
Mark is about to find out that he's been way too optimistic. He has clearly underestimated the character of this particular cow elk. A better description might be an elk that's too smart, too stubborn, and far too tough to be duped into going for a ride in a horse trailer.
anytime you're ready, guys.
The 2 calves go like clockwork. The gate opens and the first one trots out of the corral and into the chute.
Okay, tie it off.
The second calf is equally cooperative. She strolls almost leisurely into the holding chute and then stands quietly as she's fitted with ear tags.
Okay, she's set.
So far, a smooth operation. That is until now.
Okay. We're ready.
Although the gate to the chute swings open, the cow ignores it, turning instead to face the door blocking her escape.
Just kind of back off and let her fuss around. She'll.
Her ears face forward and she emits a series of high-pitched barks, all part of a defensive stance against a perceived threat.
See, Mark? Wide open with the door there. Give her a view.
Her defiance is a stirring reminder that these are wild animals and that we need to respect that fact. That we have an obligation to carefully weigh any decisions that interfere with nature's laws.
Come on. Yeah, 2 people is the way to get us. Come on. Come on. Let's go.
This cow knows that the door is the way to freedom, and she's not going to be bluffed into going through the gate behind her.
You'll see just 1 cow or something out of the whole bunch will act just like this. She will not go in there.
Mark decides that too much time has been wasted on one animal, and she's set free. She leaves quickly, moving with a kind of subdued dignity across the stream to join the rest of the herd. As the trap is being reset, the truck hauling the 3 calves starts on the road to lower elevations. It will be a 5-hour trip, north through the town of Salmon, and then west down the Salmon River Road to better winter range. As the crew travels, they receive word that 25 more elk have been captured in the trap back in Stanley and are being loaded up for the long journey to the release site. It's nearly dark by the time the first truck arrives. The 3 calves hesitate as the door swings open, then crowd to the back of the trailer.
Come on.
But with a little encouragement, they spring free one by one, running off into the night.
Okay, come on, little one.
Now they'll feed on their own with no help from man.
Let's go.
Now they are truly wild.
The secret to snow camping in the wintertime is don't camp on top of it, camp underneath it, because you're insulated.
In our last story, we talked about how vulnerable we are as human beings to extreme cold. Can you imagine unexpectedly having to spend a snowy winter's night in sub-zero temperatures? It may not be comfortable, but with a little emergency knowledge, you can survive.
We're going to do a shelter that I think anybody that skis or messes around in the mountains in the wintertime absolutely should know how to do. It's simple. It's something that you can build without any tools.
Backcountry expert Stacy Gebhardt has been spending winters messing around in Idaho's mountains for over 40 years.
If you don't have a shovel, use your snowshoes, skis, or in a worst case, just use your feet and tramp out a trench in the snow. We want it about 30 inches wide, just wide enough that you can lay down into it without hitting the sides. long enough that it'll extend for the length of your body.
The most important rule of survival is to prevent heat loss from your body. This means getting out of the wind, staying dry, and somehow hoarding your body heat.
Now a lot of this snow down here I can compact down with my feet, make it deeper. I don't want to make it too big, because the bigger the shelter, the harder it is going to be to trap my body heat in it.
Stacy's son John has been breaking off pine boughs from nearby trees. These will be used to build an arched roof for the shelter and provide a natural insulation from the snow.
Need branches see about 4 or 5 feet long. Shove the butts in there like that. And they need to be long enough that these tops will connect with each other to give the roof some structure. Now we would continue doing this all the way back until it's long enough for us to lay down in.
Stacy shovels about an 8-inch layer of snow on top that will further insulate his emergency shelter. The floor is lined with pine boughs. These act as a buffer from the snow. Once inside, you can seal the entrance with, you guessed it, more branches.
And this is something that I would stand behind on an emergency shelter over and above a snow cave. Because snow caves, you got to get on your belly, you got to dig in the snow, you get soaking wet, and then you're in trouble. With this one, the only thing I've got wet is my gloves.
Like any reputable scientist, Stacy found it necessary to test his snow shelter. Using only a snowshoe, he built one and spent the night without a sleeping bag or blankets. The next morning, the temperature inside was 32 degrees. Outside, it was 14 degrees, with a wind chill of -10. The shelter had provided a temperature advantage of over 40 degrees. But even more important than building a shelter is to be prepared by wearing the proper clothing before you leave home.
So when I walked out of the door, that was my survival kit. The things that I had on. I had polypropylene underwear and shirt, polypropylene gloves, fabrics that when they do get wet, they won't stop insulating, and they are self-drying. So your body heat alone will help dry that kind of fabric. If you're wearing cotton, you get wet, you stay wet, and it robs heat from you continually.
This snow shelter works fine for an emergency, but if you choose to winter camp, you may want to go with a little bit more style.
People at snow camp, a lot of them will still use their tents that they're used to in the summertime. Well, the secret to snow camping in the wintertime is don't camp on top of it, camp underneath it.
Stacy has constructed 2 different kinds of shelters, a classic igloo for 2 or more people, or this simple snow trench for 1 that can be built in half an hour.
Right, now the first thing we need to do is to stamp an area out about 4 feet wide and about 8 feet long. And we'll keep working this area with your feet, which is going to compress the snow crystals together so they'll bond.
The compacted snow will be cut into blocks and lifted up to form a roof. In the process of removing blocks, he's also digging the trench that forms the floor of the shelter.
Okay, I think this is ready to come out now. And I'm going to saw about a 6-inch block here with the snow saw. And these ends here, I want to cut them on kind of an angle, so that like a pie wedge, so that block will come out without hanging up.
Stacy cuts along the bottom and then lifts out the first block. The shelter requires a total of about 14 blocks, 5 along each side and then 2 apiece for the ends. When he has a couple ready, he bevels the edges with the snow saw, then tilts them together over the trench to form a peaked roof.
Pack the ends in so they don't slip out. And if I want to tighten this up a little bit, I can just trim that like that. And I would continue then laying blocks until I've got the whole trench area completed.
A completed shelter looks like this. It's been packed over with extra snow to plug the holes and to further insulate it. Stacy sets aside the entrance block and crawls inside.
Now, if I camped in here for the night, I'd have my thermarest pad down here on the ground. That'll insulate me from the snow. Sleeping bag. If I want to really heat this up, I can light a candle at night. That'll kick the temperatures up in a small area like this to about 44 degrees.
For folks like Stacy and John, who like to spend a lot of time skiing in the backcountry, some sort of snow shelter makes sense. You don't have to pack it in or out. And once it's been built, your camp is in place for the whole winter.
You're approaching the high rent district here now. This is an igloo built with snow blocks. And if you know what you're doing with trimming the blocks and making sure that you've got the right weight on the right corner, you can put one of these up in an hour and a half. Come on.
The igloo can hold 2 or 3 people. It's much warmer than a tent, never dropping below 30 degrees inside, so an Arctic-rated sleeping bag is unnecessary. And the best part of snow camping is that once you're set up, you can get in a whole lot more skiing.
Pretty wet today, but any day is a good day to go skiing.
At this point, in order to get 100 parts per million, we need 50 grams of nitrate, so we need somebody to go back to the potassium nitrate, weigh out 81.45 grams.
Our next topic is about sewage. Hardly a topic of general conversation, much less a fit subject for a television story. But there's a high school class in the small town of Cascade who takes the subject of sewage very seriously. So seriously, in fact, that they've managed to secure over $20,000 in grant money for something they call biocoil research project.
Okay. When we get out there, then probably the first thing we need to do then is run a water test to make sure we know what the phosphate is to begin with, so we can determine how fast it's removing it. So we've got a pretty high algae density in this one. The girls named this one Bazali. I got an email from Tessie the other day. She's mad because we haven't renamed the big one yet. She says you can't have a biocoil without a name, so.
Clint Kennedy's advanced biology class sets to work gathering test kits, buckets of algae and the various chemicals, gauges and tools they'll need to monitor the contraption they call a biocoil.
Now we're going to pig it out. The pigs we use in this
The project was inherited from last year's senior class, specifically a group of 4 young women who called themselves the Sewage Sisters. They began corresponding with a small company in England that designed the original biocoil to filter contaminated water.
If things really work out well, we'll make some money on it.
The Sewage Sisters studied the design and then decided with some major modifications it could have the potential to replace the septic tanks that contribute to the algae problem in Cascade Reservoir.
Who's got the key? Anybody forget the key?
This year's class took on the task of building the giant biocoil and installing it at the sewer pond in Cascade. Sewage has suddenly become a very serious subject in the town of Cascade.
Somebody want to set the test kit up here on the end and get the sample bottles out? We're going to get one sample out first, yeah. Yeah, the tube there.
Along with biology and chemistry, the kids are learning how to work with the community, building skills, how to search for patents, and what it takes to publish a scientific paper.
Allow 5 minutes for color to develop.
Okay, run the night.
What time is it?
And the hope is that someday they will be marketing the biocoil technology beyond the town of Cascade.
Okay, we added a phosphate reagent and 10 milliliters of sample water after we filtered it through to remove all algae particles and mixed it together and shook it up, and we have to wait 5 minutes for color to fully develop, and then after that we'll stick it back into this spectrophotometer, and then from there we'll read and see how many parts per million of phosphate is in the biocoil right now.
From this tank, it's the pump pumps it up through the manifold and through the coils and back through the manifold, back into the holding tank again.
The inside is an overwhelming mass of pumps, tanks, tubes, and pipes. But it doesn't seem to intimidate these students. In fact, it's questionable who's enjoying this extraordinary class more, the students or their teacher.
When Todd run the test, you know, if I had to teach just straight out of a textbook, I don't know if I could keep doing it. It's this kind of thing that keeps me going. You know, this is, I put in a lot of hours, but it's fun. It really is fun. Went from 46 parts per million to 21.
The hallmark of the wolverine is probably its almost insatiable need to be on the move. They're constantly traveling.
Tonight, we're introducing a new segment called Creature Feature. Each month, we'll profile one of Idaho's wild animals at the end of the show. Our premier creature is a secretive scavenger called the wolverine. The wolverine is one of the largest members of the weasel or mustelid family. These elusive animals prefer the rough terrain of rugged, remote country, areas of traditionally little human disturbance.
Wolverines have an incredible sense of smell. They spend the winter scavenging, looking for food. They rely almost exclusively on carrying dead carcasses, animals that have died the past fall and through the winter, and they're buried under the snow. And wolverines can, it seems they can smell this stuff from miles and miles away. This is an incredible animal. Its tenacity and its durability represents everything that's wild, and the extreme environmental conditions that it lives in, to me, represents, I guess, the hallmark of the wilderness philosophy or ethic.